Hi everyone, JP Michaels here. I was on with JustJohn and I don't know what happened, so I'm trying to get him back on. So I'm sending him an invite. See what's going on. There we are, send requests. And for JustJohn, I was trying to.
Hello, how are you? Here I
I don't
am.
know what happened there, bud.
I know, like it bugged out for some reason, but we're back now. We're here.
This is totally unrelated, but this is I received a couple of gifts from Milan, Italy, from a company called Air in Tribal. This is a Maasai tribe um, leather beaded cuff. Isn't that beautiful?
Wow, that's really fire.
And this is another one that they gave that she sent to me.
Oh my.
Isn't that beautiful? So I'm going to style. I picked orange today, thinking I might do something with them. So
I'm so excited for the projects we're gonna get into in 2021 and all the styling that you're gonna do. It's gonna be so fire. I can't wait.
well, as I said earlier, John, you're an easy person to style because you just have that kind of physical presence that allows you to own it. And that's really what it is. That's the transformative power of clothing. Um, and that's actually, that's the transformative power of anything, and that is to own it, to make it a part of yourself.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, you told me once that I know that Kat has a background in musical theater, but I think you sang some musical theater in your day as well, in your younger days.
I
And
did.
is it,
I did.
well, so it's maybe we should talk about that. Like, how do you find your transition? Where did you find your hip hop? Where did you find your voice that you're making music with now from those kinds of experiences?
Oh, absolutely. Like I went to high school. I went to Wexford, in Scarborough, which is a art school, and
Yes.
theater school. Dom's in this. What's up, Dom?
Hey, Dom.
That school like taught me all about performance. That school taught me all about like it was the beginning of like they encouraged you to show off. They encouraged you to be like, it was the first place where I deemed it as like a X-Men. You know what I mean? Where there was this cat that could like play the piano since they were in the womb, and there's one person who could like flip their legs around their heads. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
a place where I
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
I was finding like, okay, what is my calling, and how do I find my voice? It's the beginning of my journey there for sure. From
Hmm.
that to Wexford and that school for sure. Yeah.
Was there a teacher? Was there a high school teacher that sort of brought your voice out of you? Mine was Miss Hogan.
What did Miss Hope?
Miss Hogan was a now. Yeah, I have to paint the picture. This is high school, late 1960s, early 70s. So this is the just coming out of the hippie era, and she was a hippie, and she always sat on the desk, full frontal, with her guitar, legs spread, and it was very hard to concentrate on the music because she always wore very short dresses. Anyway, Miss Hogan was the one who helped me find my voice in a more authentic way. And she took me to the University of Guelph, where because I grew up in Guelph, and to the music department. She had a contact there because her husband was a professor at the University of Guelph. So, and they did a voice analysis, and that's what started it all. And that's how I found my operatic voice, and I just pursued it.
How long did you sing opera? For like a couple of decades, right?
I sang opera professionally for 15 years.
Wow.
I trained for 25 years because you're always training. Even um, and you're always developing. So
What was the biggest like lesson that's always stuck with you in all of your opera intensive training that you still carry to you today?
well, I think I alluded to it earlier before we were so rudely interrupted in our chat, a technical interruption,
I know.
um, and that is and that is that there's 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 never any apology for what feels right. When something feels right to you, and opera felt right, even though I the type of singer I was in the operatic world, I was known as what they call a comprimario tenor, which just means a supporting role. I was the sidekick, I was the comedic relief. And so the biggest lesson I learned was you don't always have to be the first to stand out. You don't always have to be front and center to be noticed or to be appreciated or to be, and that's a hard lesson because um, many of the roles that I would do were physical roles because of my size and my dance background and such. And so if you needed somebody to slide down a banister and sing, that was me, or to have a fight on stage and sing, that was me. So the biggest lesson I learned is to, I know it sounds corny and cheesy, but there are no small roles, just small players. So you need to make sure that you don't diminish your contribution to the team effort of the production, so to speak.
I resonate with
Um,
that a bunch just because I found that I understand that a lot dearly because, you know, I am a firm believer of like running your own race and understanding that nothing gets in the way of your destiny. And if you always just do everything miraculously, if you always put your full effort into whatever you're doing, that you will receive the full overflow and the full abundance of whatever that current stage that you're in your life is. And whether it's for good things or even like hard things, it's like if you always show up, you will receive it. It will unfold for you in a favorable way, usually double the amount. I think that's, I think you know like God never gives you something that you're not prepared for, you're not.
so, John, what did showing up look like for you in an instance? Like, what was you this past year? Because, everybody's a number of people have said that made a comment about how much I flourished this past year, and I did. I really flourished. I felt it, and I think it's because I showed up for myself.
Yeah,
What was a time that you showed up for yourself this past year that you were vitally aware that you were present in that moment to 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 move forward, to give you the substance and the confidence to move forward in your authentic search?
I think
What was,
like, yeah, absolutely, that's a good question. I think like the most times that I showed up for myself is when I leaned fully into uncertainty, when I leaned into things that I didn't know what the outcome would be. When I leaned into things that, there was no rubric or no blueprint of what the next steps were. Happy New
yeah.
Year, Vape. I see Vapes in this. Huge, huge fan, huge supporter. Um, that's when I found that I, it was scary, but I always came up on the other side, like increased. And I always came up on the other side, stronger, more courageous, better, wiser. So anytime that I felt like I didn't know what the outcome would be, that's when I ever felt like I leaned into the uncertainty. I embraced the
Wow.
wonder.
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
So like things,
Um,
yeah. So like things like whether it was like, okay, I don't know like what this style of sound is. I'm going to do. I've never done this before, but I'm gonna do it anyway because that's what my heart is telling me. That's what my soul is telling me.
yeah.
Or I'm gonna take on this new position, and I don't know I don't know what, like, I never done it before. I don't know what's to come. And it's scary, but I embraced it. And it's like, oh wow, if I didn't embrace it, I would not be in this next vibration that I'm in. Like, the vibration is always set up for you. And if you don't, you're either kind of caught up in this loophole where you're frozen,
Right.
or you say, fuck it, I'm gonna just lean into it, and then boom, you're in the next vibration. You're like, oh wow, thank God.
I like that imagery, John, that you mentioned, leaning into it as opposed to falling off a cliff, so to speak. It's because you never want to lose your footing. You just, like you say, you want to lean into it. It's sort of that. That was a beautiful way of putting it. To put it into concrete terms, for me, never having styled somebody for a particular reason, which I did for you, and it's certainly one of the highlights of my year last year, to have the opportunity to style you for a very specific journey that you were on, and I leaned into it, and how I leaned into it was that you were gracious enough to allow the time for me and yourself to get to know one another on a much deeper level. And I think
didn't work together until we had at least 3 like intimate conversations that spanned over like 2 hours. And
well, at least I think that second time when we were sitting in your living room and we were exchanging, it was almost like a sing-off with our favorite song. I mean, you were playing songs from yet to be released, and I was playing you Leontine Price singing Madame Butterfly, which to this day on your system sounds the best. But
but that's a huge part, JP, because if we talk about like this idea that, from you just sending me messages and being like, yeah, fuck it, let's meet up and like have this amazing, intentionful conversations, to you being in my living room and I'm showing you unreleased records that are like post genre, no fucking genre to this, and you're showing me these like classic, like timeless opera records, and we're having this dialogue and this conversation. I think it all stems back to this idea of staying open. Staying open is like the ultimate key. And no matter how many times I've been like, my heart has been broken from it, or I've been hurt in the past from staying open, and like and it being like kind of like used to the wrong cats, I always continue to stay open, because that's how you find these beautiful soul connections and these beautiful
yeah.
like alignments in life, and the things that move you into your joy. And I think like staying open is like super super key to everything, and to even our styling collaboration as well.
Well, I agree, John. I can't tell you how much I agree, because I'm going to your imagery of leaning into it again is much like that idea of what you're about to do is a duty to yourself, because you know that you're going to grow as a result of it.
Yes.
And you will never. If I hearken back to my roots in the monastery, in the friary, my studies taught me was basically that we as a humankind never choose evil. We always choose good, whether it's an apparent good or whether it's an actual good. That's the trick. We have to discern whether and sometimes we don't discern that until after the fact. And so I think going into 2021, that imagery of leaning into ourselves where we're most uncomfortable, having a conviction strong enough as a soldier would have as a duty to country to serve, we have a duty to serve our authentic selves. And so that gives us the courage. And I often say, it's a brain heart moment. When your brain knows what your heart feels, that dual citizenship, so to speak, of alignment, of being authentic to yourself, of being truthful, you really lean into that as well and own it. And so that's what I would say is my message to myself, and my message to anyone who might be listening, is using those two images to lean into yourself and see it as your duty to lean into yourself to become your most authentic self. And I know that sounds very, 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 but it's true.
It's true.
It's very true in the deepest point, because it really doesn't matter who else is going to buy into it.
Because not everybody needs to buy. Not everybody.
No. Right.
But but you are here to fill out your assignment. And
yeah, exactly.
you being here, being like us still being here, means that our greatest feat hasn't happened yet. Our goal, our purpose hasn't fully been fulfilled yet. And I'm here to complete my assignment. And I understand that my journey to completing my assignment will dishearten some people. It will make some people uncomfortable. It will make some people envious, jealous, because they haven't looked into their own selves and seen that I need to fulfill my own assignment. And once you understand that, and I've come into that a lot of like understanding, okay, I'm running my own race and I have my assignment to fulfill, and I understand that this won't satisfy everybody, but I know that it's satisfying myself. And I know through it.
Yes, exactly. And it doesn't have to satisfy anybody else.
Exactly. And I know and understand through it fulfilling myself, I can find joy and I can find contentment, and I can be content in every stage. Every stage I could be content. And I think that's super, super important, is understanding that, okay, I'm here to fulfill my assignment. And in order to fulfill your assignment, there might be other tests that you have to overcome and pass. And there might be things that you need to garner along the way to strengthen you for the bigger feat, the bigger assignment to come. And then when these things happen, when these beautiful things happen, abundance, increase, joy,
contentment.
All that is left, all that is truly left is gratitude. And you're just like,
precisely.
I'm grateful.
Precisely.
I'm grateful for today, and I'm grateful for what's to come.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's to come, but I have a feeling what it is, what it's going to be pretty good. In the sense that I think it's going to, John, I look forward to continuing my journey of authenticity, as it were, this year, and discernment. As I mentioned earlier, the whole concept of what is apparent good and what is an actual good to us. That's the leap we take. That's the leap of faith in ourselves. That's confidence, which literally means having faith in yourself with faith. And I think your point about gratitude is really not to be glossed over. I think that really is the key. Because for me, the ability to say thank you for something simply means that I'm going to be able to bring it closer to myself and have a look at it as to whether or not it's going to serve my journey.
Can we talk about the thank you? I remember
absolutely
at the park, and you said the power of thank you. The power of
yes. Thank you. I said, I write that the thank you are. Some people write it as one word. Some people write it as two. But I say that thank you are the two most disarming words in the English language, and that is, you take all of the power away from someone who is going to hurl something at you by simply saying thank you for it. And because the thank you brings you into the moment to own what is being said, to consider what might have been done, to look at it in a way that you're in some way detached, because you're looking at it to see whether or not it's going to serve you in some way. And if the answer is no, this is not serving me because somebody just called me a fucking asshole, then you give that back, because you're not a fucking asshole, So, I mean, pardon my French, but that seems to be the way that messages can get across in this kind of scenario.
And even goes back to gratitude, right? Like,
absolutely.
when I
Your
med-
thank you, your thank you stone.
when I
Your,
yeah, very much so. Like every morning when I meditate and I open my eyes and I come back into the physical realm, and I'm looking around and I'm looking in the sky and I'm just like, thank you.
exactly.
Thank you
And,
for
and
another day. Thank you for life. Give thanks for life. Because life is so fragile. Like life is moving constantly. And
so,
and
so John, what would you say to somebody who doesn't feel that their life is fragile, who feels that they're in a spot where their life has very little meaning? How do we reach those people who may only hear empty words when we speak here and now? Like, okay, how do we give them that hope? How do we give them that belief in themselves?
you know, JP, I would say we have to tell them again and again to get closer to consciousness. They have to get closer to consciousness, and we have to use our own lessons and our own afflictions and dispositions as, hopefully a beacon of light, that they can know that you don't have to literally go through the ranks or a huge storm in your life for you to get closer to consciousness. You don't have to. You could avoid these steps. You could get there before. You know what I mean? And I think like a lot of times.
So, just for are you when you say consciousness, do you mean like a mindfulness?
Yeah, like I would say like a mindfulness,
Okay.
God,
I'm just wondering how you're defining consciousness. That's all.
Yes, I would say like the understanding that you are knowing that you are the creator and that you are the destroyer. Like that's something that I realize that like I am the creator, I am the destroyer, and if I'm using my mindfulness correctly, that I create the reality that I choose to live in. And a lot of times, if there are cats that are like, feeling like, their life has no meaning or their life doesn't have a purpose, then they're continuing to create that reality in the illusion that they're in. They're continuing to create, and that's what it will continue to keep them frozen until a huge habitual niche happens or something like very tumultuous happens in their life that wakes them up. And sometimes, it could be, you know, a loss of a family member. It could be a loss of a job. It could be something huge that brings them into, okay, I need to like live in my purpose. I need to find a way to live in my truth. But
Right.
what we can do as beacons of light, and we can encourage, and we all we can be is really be reference points. You know what I mean?
I like that.
I'm not here
Yes.
I'm not here to tell anybody what to do.
I think
I
that's an excellent image. You
I
know,
try to be a reference point of somebody that is living in their authentic truth, and somebody who is always finding ways to move into joy, and hopefully that inspires people to find the value in themselves and find the reasons why they serve.
and John, we've spoken about it earlier about how we afforded ourselves the time to get to know one another on a very different level than just a working level, so that when we did come to work together, and I'm only speaking for myself here, the actual shoot was a phenomenal experience for me because the energy in the room was there, and we created that ahead of time. We designed that energy. I was prepared for you, buddy. you know, and you were prepared for me, and so what one of the things I write about is why reinvention. When somebody says, why should I reinvent myself? If you're not, and my response to that is reinvention has to be a very mindful process where you have such a strong opinion of yourself, and I'm going to put it in those words, that you don't accidentally believe what others are saying about you, but rather through that mindfulness and strength of conviction of who you are telling yourself who you are, and you're telling the rest of the world who you are, and
Exactly.
that you're happy with that at this moment. And it's that happiness that will attract others to you, because happy people make people happy. And if ever there was a time in the world, existence of the world in contemporary times that needed to know that, then people have to be prepared to say goodbye to those who are not making them happy, whom they don't like when they're with them. You know, that's the test. Do you like yourself when you are with these people? Do you like yourself when you're in this situation?
Yes.
Do you like yourself? That's what I mean by making yourself the center of your own universe. And
Yes.
if you please yourself in your mindfulness and in your convictions, the rest will follow. That's what I've learned.
Oh, that's
and
so
and
very.
it's not always that easy, and the hardest part was I probably said goodbye to more people in my life than I've said hello to.
Mm.
And the reason is I'm becoming more discerning as to whom I want to invite
Boundary.
into my world.
Yep. Boundary.
And the boundaries, but you also spoke about how often you've been disappointed, and that it hasn't stopped you from continuing this journey. And I think that's the message I would give people who aren't feeling, you know, the last thing I want to come across as being sanctimonious or righteous in this, because to be honest with you, I honestly believe that my mindfulness and my authenticity is very fragile. It's very new. This is not something, I mean, if anything, my age gives me the advantage of trusting myself just a little bit more based on my experience.
Mm.
But it doesn't necessarily give me a get out of jail free card, you know?
Very much so.
Um,
Very much so.
because,
We're always
um, Go ahead.
because we're always learning,
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
and I think
So,
that I mean I want to leave here is never apologize for trying.
oh, I saw that message the other just you on TikTok. I just thought, thank you, John. You gave me that message when I needed to hear it.
Very much so resonate with that energy because we're all on different parts of our life. We're all on different experiences in our life, and sometimes um, we reach failures not because we are a bad people per se, but it's just off lack of experience, right? And I think like a lot of the times there's things that happen in our lives where we grow from, and it's not necessarily because we are um it's just there's so much more to always constantly learn and constantly evolve, and even whether it comes to your own craft or your own consciousness, it's like we're always continuing to learn. And I think something that i I hold with myself is to never apologize for trying and never feel bad for trying. and
Well,
and I
exactly.
that has always continued for me to continue on my path of my authentic truth and of my purpose and completing my assignment, is because that even though you know I've I've had shortcomings in my past, it's never stopped me from trying, and I've continued to become better. I've continued to become stronger. I've continued to become sharper, and I'm grateful. And then again, all it comes back down to is this appreciation and gratitude for all the lessons you've learned, gratitude for all the experiences you've been through,
And and also for the shit,
and also
because because it really is that's the sounding board. The shit's the sounding board because it really is. And
yeah.
it's like spaghetti. If it sticks, then you got more work to do.
Oh, very much
Um,
so. Like a good friend of mine, say, she said, triggers are your medicine,
oh, I like that.
and that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're feeling triggered by something, that means there's still work that needs to be done.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And
Repeat that for me again and everybody else. I
say
like that.
my really amazing artist, says, triggers are your medicine.
Okay.
And I think like that is something, and it's like if I might be triggered by something and I'm like, okay, like I really observe it and I'm like, okay, how can I, what, okay, I need to sit in this, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that's important that we also need to understand is this idea of like, you know, we can't always be happy and spiritual and good,
No.
but we have to also be able to sit in our shadow, understand our shadow, live with our shadow, recognize our shadow, do the work on our shadow. You know?
That's to me that's the time I take to decide whether or not this is really going to serve me on my reinvention process.
And then
You
once
know,
you're out with it, then those triggers that come back again, they don't hit you, they don't affect you. But if you don't, then it kind of goes back to that whole thing of like being frozen in time, and you can't let things go, and you can't move forward because
what do you, may I ask? Is there anything you feel less? Is there a trigger that you feel less responsive to?
yeah. I think a trigger for me that I feel less responsive to is like definitely people pleasing. Like I think like I've learned that it is impossible for me to please everybody. And I think I've been affected by people pleasing just because like I was one of like three brothers, and my brothers played a lot of sports and I was the art kid, you know what I mean? And because I was the art kid, like my dad didn't really understand that or supported that and wanted me to play soccer so much. And I've
Right,
always had this validation of trying to validate myself to my father. And I think
right.
understanding that, and then that kind of trickled down into like my early 20s of like trying to please everybody, trying to be perfect for everybody. And that is something you can never complete, and that's something you'll never achieve. And
So
once I've understood that, I had to understand that the hard way of trying to please everybody, and I knowing that was impossible. But once I've now recognized that, you know, I'm able to do the work that kind of like I could catch myself when I'm like, okay, do I love myself, right? And if I love myself, what would I do, right? And that's something that's really has helped me a
I
lot
like that.
as a
What
guy.
would I do? What would my true self do in this situation?
In any
Yeah,
situation, I always ask myself whether I'm eating, working out, or like having a really tough conversation with somebody in business. I'm always,
yeah.
if I love myself, what would I do? And that is my guide. That is my like my little like my yellow like light like before any move
Yeah.
made.
Well, yeah, and
Oh,
it's a big if, isn't it? That's a big if because you know, I have to sometimes change that if to when. When I like myself, what, you know, and that's why that question I always ask, do I like myself when?
I
And
love
again,
I
you
love
know,
that
it,
that
it, you know, because it cuts through the bullshit.
it does.
And, and, and I have to say, I have, I have said goodbye to so many people this year simply because I didn't and I've told them that in those words. I cannot see you anymore. I cannot have conversations with you because I do not like myself when I do have these conversations. And that's not putting the onus on them. It's simply saying I can't be around this energy. I
Yeah,
just did it the other day.
that's
You
so
know,
real.
and whether it is true or whether it, you know, an actual truth or an apparent truth, it doesn't matter. To me, it's true. That's all that matters. You know, that person can
Me,
argue.
me is true. I love that.
Yes,
To
for
me,
me, it's true. And
that is
and and so I'm not judging you by what you're doing. I'm simply telling you how what you're doing or what you're saying or how you're being is affecting me. In
yeah,
that I, that I don't like myself when I am in this energy.
yeah.
I, you know, and then you can do whatever you want. It's just not going to happen with me present in your life. And that old adage, leave them alone and they'll come home wagging their tails behind them. When you give people those kinds of of not barriers, but what you um, what do you call it? I can't remember the name. You mentioned it earlier, but when you give them an understanding of just how much you own yourself and how much they're not going to take away from that ownership, they begin to respect you for that, because they also begin to experience that you're happy with that decision, and they want to be around happy people.
Very much so. And I think a lot of like reaching liberation.
Boundaries. Thank you, Phil. Thank you. I don't know what the hell I was thinking of, but I think it was this.
I think
I should have asked you if I could smoke, but
you don't have to ask me. Do what you love.
I do, baby. I do. If you think I was going to ask you, boy.
I'm gonna pick you up on Unified Feel, because Unified Feel, we're gonna be having a lot more conversations like these, and I encourage everybody to follow Unified Feel. It's a private account in my bio right now, but we're gonna be having a lot more conversations like these throughout 2021.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's important, right? And
well, you know, John, we're looking at life from opposite ends of the spectrum in many ways, and yet we're not. Like, I think I said it once before. I said, John, there are two people in this world that are so unalike, and yet we are so much the same. The two, you and myself, and that's what I find so. What I found so inspiring this year. People like yourself, who worked, who did the work, who are doing the work, who continue to do the work, and to also produce work that is so meaningful. Your work this year is nothing short of stellar, and
thank you.
Your authenticity and your pain, for that matter, is palpable, and that's and there's no doubt that your brain knows what your heart feels. You know, there is no doubt, because it's that dual action of dialogue. You know, you can't have a dialogue with one.
Can we get more to the brain-heart connection?
Well, absolutely.
I always love when you speak about the brain-heart connection.
It's a moment in time when you are secure in the knowledge of what you're about to do is going to feed your journey, or bring you closer, or propel. I like the word propel, to propel you on your journey. And how that works is this: you cannot have, if you have something important in your life, like your sanity, like your happiness, if you take it apart and, what do I think about this? What do I feel about this? This is one of the things I talk about at length in the very first workshop that I offer, 60 minutes to reinvent yourself in 60 minutes. And it's always about, don't look to me, don't keep looking for what the answers are. Look for what the questions are. You know, because we are born with all the answers of the universe.
We already have everything we need.
You know, life is just one big game of Jeopardy, and that is, we need to come up with the questions, not the answers. The answers are there. It's the questions. And so if we treat it like one big game of Jeopardy, we will, by asking ourselves the hard questions, and in the right series, and I think this is your never give up moment, where if you're not going to get the answer in one question. You're going to you won't maybe not get the answer in 100 questions. The point is, don't stop asking the question. And so when you have something to hold on to, whether it's a thought, then you can ask your heart how it feels. And if it's a feeling, then you can ask your brain what it thinks about it. And in that connection of dialogue, of discernment, of what is truly authentically you, that's the substance to confidence, and it's confidence that propels you forward in your journey. But
absolutely agree. It's confidence that sorry, my grill made me spit. It's confidence that propels you forward and gives you momentum. And this is we choose what we give our momentum to.
Absolutely, it's our choice. We are the designers. And so by saying goodbye to people who no longer serve you in that journey, you are getting rid, you're separating the wheat from the chaff. You're getting rid of what doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
And it is by design selfish in the way that it will lead you to a point of selflessness simply because you own yourself more and more along your journey.
Exactly. And not everybody's meant to be with you on every part of your journey.
No, exactly.
Only your soul tribe. That's it. You learn, I mean, there's experiences that you learn from everybody that come across in your life, but the reality is you have to hold a level of selfishness in order for you to be able to have a selflessness, in order for you to bring forward generational blessings to the people around you and the people that you love and your family. I think I've come to understand this. And again, me struggling with people pleasing for so long really shadowed that from me, like letting me understand that, you know, because I was so dedicated to not wanting to see the ugly things that I didn't want to see in people, you know? And I think that was something that I was like, oh no, like I'm gonna keep certain people around because oh there was this connection with me at a certain time, you know, and I didn't want to see the things that were so really evident to me, and I didn't take the time to quiet my.
Well, acknowledging them and acting on them are two different things, and maybe
Very true.
you know, and maybe that's your point too. Is that it's a process, and like any process, it can change because it has to be by nature dynamic. Otherwise, you're simply following in another rut. You
I
know, if
We don't take time to listen to ourselves. We don't take time to listen to God, and like we don't take time to just like
yeah.
be quiet with ourselves, like, you know what I mean? And like, again, like you said, we already have all the answers.
Yeah, we have to be still with our eyes and our ears and our mouths and our thoughts.
Because then
And
find the right, then we know the questions to ask, and then everything seems so apparent, you know?
well, it does, but in this brain heart connection, we might have we might think we have the answers. The question is, do we feel we have the answers?
Uh,
And that's what I want to really bring home in my workshops sometime during in the course of this talk too, is that I I'm really compartmentalizing the dynamic here so that it's a check and balance, if you will. Your thoughts are kept in check with what you're feeling, and your feelings are kept in check with what you're thinking. And you have to have that dual action in order to create, again, what I call the substance. Because if you have not come to some kind of brain heart connection in what you're dealing with, there's no substance to go forward. There's no understanding as to why you would be going forward or what you would be going forward to. And I
let's
think
let's talk about the idea of the unconscious body and the conscious body, and that
that's the same idea. Yeah, that's exactly it.
you might think you know everything. You've watched podcasts, you've digested everything, but if you ask sunk
Yeah,
up with yourself, your unconscious body is still making decisions before your conscious mind even is able.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You are
And
you find, I'm like, why did I make that decision? Or why was I so reactive? Or why am I doing things that I know doesn't serve me? And
or why did that trigger me in that way? Why was that a trigger for me?
exactly, it's because your unconscious body still has things that you're working through that you need to figure out, and you're not fully in sync with mind, body, and soul.
So, John, what would you say is the difference in this process of reinvention of mind heart, brain heart? What is the distinction between working hard and working smart?
Intention,
Ah, there you go.
your why,
And that,
your why,
your why, your duty to self.
your service. What is
Yep,
why? And you have to know your why in such confidence, in such detail,
exactly. So
or
that you don't accidentally believe what others are saying about your why.
and then you're just roaming.
That's right.
You're just
Or or you're being dragged into somebody else's reinvention process that you don't have any business being there. Not because you don't want to be, but because that's their journey and they need to go on it. And as you said, not everybody has to be every step of the way on your journey. And people will come in and out of your life, and it's not it's I don't want to make it sound like you're using them. It's more like you are infusing them. You're infusing what you need from them in order to move forward. And I'm very grateful that you allowed me the time that we spent to get to know each other on this level before we ever ventured into a different level of working together, because there's such a broad understanding in styling, because the word intention crops up when you go to style, and really styling is just dressing with intention. That's all it is. It's dressing, it's being styled. And because people often say, oh, you're a designer. I say, no, I am not a designer. I do not design clothes. I take designers' clothes and I dress people with intention. And they may not see themselves in what I choose for them. And that's where the trust comes in. And and publicly, I must say thank you for trusting me, because there was a lot at stake in terms of presenting you to the world in a way that took off your beret and put something else on. You know, it's that dawning of the, you know.
Yeah.
I have one other question. Why is it when I wear a suit like yours, I look so dorky, and you look so good in it? I have to get these ones. This is
you know what?
Grim.
We don't got any of Jay's hats on, and we got to say a big shout out to Jay.
Yeah, that's true.
Hats are...
Well, that's absolutely true. That's true.
I'm so grateful to have met you alongside our journeys in 2020, and I'm so looking forward to everything that 2021 has in store for us, for your individual journey, for my individual journey, all the miracles that are unfolding, all the abundance, all the increase, good health to everybody that's in this live right now.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Absolutely, John. Thank you for this opportunity. And like you said, I hope we can do this again. Hi, everyone. Marina, Will Newton. I have put my alarm on, so we will, like when we got cut off, I reset my alarm so we wouldn't go over time.
And we're gonna continue this.
John, it's 1:11. Look at that. It's 1:11.
I know. Yes, alignment.
That's a special one.
Let me tell. Can you share the information about your seminars that you're rolling?
It's a little premature, but I'm looking at rolling them out in February.
Amazing.
And it'll be a series of 4 or 5 one-hour sessions. I haven't quite figured out the exact structure of it, but there will be a live component for sure. In that, you know, it'll be Zoom or whatever. It'll be, and also I've sort of, the working title or the working image I have is dying to self on the road to reinvention.
Of that.
You know, and that whole, what does dying to self look like? What does pain look like? Naming your pain, taking ownership, your thank you moments that will bring you into the moment so that you can have your brain heart a connection. It really is a divesting of attitudes, a divesting of prejudices, towards yourself. So that you will be more open to who you are. And it's called Gone in 60 Minutes, Reinvent Yourself in 60 Minutes. So there will be 1-hour Zoom sessions or some social media platform where you will be able to buy into a series of workshops that will take you through a step-by-step plotting of your reinvention, whether it's, and then always with a mind of eventually, at some point, relating it to the power of transformation through dressing with intention. So there's that aspect of, because it's one thing to work on your inside. It's another to then begin to able to express that in
Yeah.
your outside. And you experienced it in our work together on your photo shoot, and how ownership of your image really can present. I mean, that image of you in that chainmail is like, that's that just
My
I
favorite shot, man.
I look at that and I think, oh my God, if ever anybody owned that was you. And I remember Lane saying, this is going to be a an epic shot. And I remember he just said it to me, just as he was fiddling. Oh, this is so we're at 1:15. So we've got 5 minutes left, John, before we lose this. And I want to save it. So anyway.
I thank you. Thank you for the time. And again, this is I just got a message from First. He just DM'd me. He was in the chat. He said like that live was everything to start 2021. And you know, again, it's like there I'm so grateful that we are able to create opportunities where we could share dialogue and conversation to help push evolution forward and help all of us on our individual journeys get closer to,
Well,
which I feel is super, super.
I couldn't agree with you more, John. And you know what? When you get down to it, we're both writers. You work with language, I work with language, and I think we both feel pretty strongly about what we know to be true for ourselves. And yeah, I'm so grateful. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Just John, you're not just John. You're much more. You're a friend, and you are a confidant, and you are certainly a very special soul. And I thank you for your gift of music and laughter. I love making you laugh. You have a great laugh.
I'm very grateful for you, JP. Till next time.
Namaste.
Side feel. We're gonna do a lot more things like this on our live in the private page.
Absolutely.
Building this, we're gonna build this village. Thank you, everybody. Let's continue to connect more. JP, save this chat. Thank you again for your light and your guidance. Peace be with you.
Peace.
Love.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.